think we can probably get started. So welcome to our monthly pulse. Thank you again for joining. We just opened up the monthly pulse chat channel. If any questions come up throughout any time during this update, please post them there. I'll also be kind of linking some or pasting in some links of the things that we're going to be talking about so that everyone's kind of on the same page. And I think we can get started. So we'll first start off with explaining some of the stats that we're seeing for phase 2 currently. And I'll let Adi take it away from there to walk you guys through some of those stats. Adi?
Hi, hello, and welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Let's talk a few stats about the network. So first off, we have about 3,000 nodes online at present. Apart from that, we also have about 300,000 transactions per day for the last few days. You can find more information about this on Explorer that we have. So there's explorer.ironfish.network/charts. We'll link this up in the monthly pulse chat and in general. Apart from that, we currently have 24,766 users with non-zero testnet points. We recently crossed the 20,000 Twitter follower mark. Thank you so much for following us on there. And we also would like to thank our community members, especially WD021, Fish Guy, among others, Product Guy, and many others who have contributed to the product development by contributing to the code base, raising PR, submitting bugs. Also, we welcome new community members such as Neuronal, who is interested in contributing to the Rust code base of Ironfish. So if you are a programmer, please do explore this side of our network. Check out our GitHub, and if you have any questions, we would be more than happy to assist you with it. Yeah.
Awesome. And with that, the other thing that happened that we want to highlight is we actually wrote a letter to the US Treasury in their request for comment. And Craig, who's our GC, is going to walk you guys through that letter and kind of our summary of the opinion that we wrote to them. Craig?
Great. Thanks, Elena. So there's a lot going on all over the world in crypto regulations. And one of the things that's happening here in the U.S. is earlier this year, the president put out what's called an executive order, and it required a bunch of different parts of the U.S. government to write reports around crypto. So all sorts of things from stable coins and central bank digital currencies to what I'm going to talk about today, and that's the criminal risks around crypto. And so a part of the government called the US Treasury Department put out a paper earlier this year in September that talked about the risks of criminals using cryptocurrency. And one of the things that we found particularly troubling in that paper was that every time the government referred to an effort to bring more privacy to cryptocurrency, it's associated with criminal motives, like, the criminals want privacy, right? And didn't mention at all how everyone wants privacy. And so, interesting too is actually think that the criminals take advantage of the lack of privacy in blockchains today. And that's something that, at least according to the paper that the government put out, they weren't really thinking about. And so we wrote our own paper. It's on our website as a blog. We published it there, and I think we're going to put a link in the comments too, so you can connect to that. One, helping the government still understand how much of a lack of privacy there is on blockchains today. I think there's still a misconception within the government that pseudonymity equals privacy, and so we really wanted to point out how easy it is. One, just through interacting with people to lose the pseudonymity. But even without that, it doesn't take much if you can see someone's transactions to narrow in on who that person is. And then two, point out that there are some real risks that come from this. And so one is a national security risk, right? So, from your transactions, you can see so much about a person, right? Who your friends are, who your family is, where you work, maybe your political or religious beliefs. You can see all that from what you do in your transactions. And so having that public and being able to be collected and exploited by everyone, including rogue regimes who will do bad things with that data or attempt to do bad things with that data, is not good. And so the U.S. should be thinking about this from their own national security perspective. Any country, really, if you believe in democratic values, you don't want that much information out there for your adversaries to be able to see about citizens and what they're doing. And so that was one thing that we think that they had really missed before in terms of risk. The other thing we wanted to point out is, when you put out this much information, criminals use it for social engineering their scams, is what they call it. So it's just a way, if they know what you've interacted with, they can tailor their scams to more easily trick you. And so, give you a personal example. I donated some money to Ukraine back in, some cryptocurrency to Ukraine back in late February, and almost immediately got scan NFTs airdropped in my wallet. And so, it's one of those things that, the more we put out there, the lack of privacy enables these criminals to tailor their scams, get you to click on a link. That leads to ransomware, cybercrime, all of these bad things. And so we really think that, one of the things we want to do with this paper and some of the other work we're doing is move the discussion from, where it is with some people today in law enforcement and otherwise, that privacy is bad, to privacy is really necessary, both for this ecosystem to flourish and to prevent crime. We just got to figure out how to do it in the right way. How can we bring privacy to the space, but do it in a way so that, regimes who are trying to buy nuclear weapons and doing these other awful things, terrorists, can't take advantage of it. So I hope you check it out. I'd love if you give us a comment or feedback. We certainly take that into consideration. And with that, I will turn it back to you, Elena.
Awesome. Thank you for that. So up next, we actually want to talk about our roadmap. So some of you might have realized that we actually took down a roadmap about our roadmap. So some of you might have realized that we have a way to update a roadmap such that it's actually in sync with what we were working on, and make it more accurate to represent the work that was actually being done. So in the background, what we did was we actually revamped how we do our tasks. We started using a different tool and kind of revamped the entire process so that our roadmap is actually more accurate, more transparent about the things that we were doing. So Lawrence, who's our engineering manager, is going to walk you guys through our thought process of how we did that, and how you should read the roadmap that is going to be up shortly after this call. Lawrence?
Yeah, thanks, Elena. I think Elena gave a great intro as to our thought process around the roadmap. We do have a public roadmap, and we want to ensure that that public roadmap syncs as closely as possible with the actual work the engineers are doing. And for those of you who saw the roadmap before, it was in a Google Sheet, and so essentially we had a whole process where we would export from time to time our set of tasks into this Google Sheet, and it was hard to keep it up to date and have a good view on what the Ironfish team is actually working on. At the same time, we decided we made the decision to do testnet phase 3. So we are going to be adding a number of projects to the roadmap and changing around a handful of things. So the response that I think a number of you noticed is that we took down the roadmap and we are now replacing it with a new version of the roadmap, which I'm going to talk about here. I think Elena is going to link to it in the chat. We actually have two different views that we're going to put on the website. We have, first of all, a timeline-based format that looks like a development timeline. I'm sure many of you are familiar with this. And then second, we have a list of all the projects that we're working on now, we're thinking about working on, and that we're going to work on in the future. That is directly linked to our new task management system, which is an Airtable. So what you're getting is essentially an alternate view on the actual task management system that we're using as engineers to build things, which is a huge improvement over what we had before. So, this will stay perfectly up to date with exactly what we're doing as a team. It's going to go up on the website later today and be broadcast to everyone. But is visible through the links provided right now, and so you can get a preview of what's going on the website. I think a lot of this, again, we tried to explain within the task on the task list what all the different timeline bars mean. So you get this nice graph view, so you can sort of see what a time-based view, and then you also get a more in-depth explanation of each task, so people can understand how we're thinking about things. We're excited to take feedback on this. It's been a lot of work to make sure we have something that is usable for both the internal team and produces a nice external roadmap and have all those things linked together. And we think it's going to help keep the community very much in sync with exactly what's going on in Ironfish development as we move towards phase 3 and then mainnet launch.
All right, thank you for that, Lawrence. Please give us feedback on the format of the roadmap, and if there are any questions that come up in terms of something being unclear, or just general questions about some of the tasks that we're working on, please feel free to reach out and answer them, and ask them, and we'll try to answer them. All right, so up next, I'm gonna actually talk about phase 2, and the continuation / ending of phase 2 and what to expect there. So right now, we have a lot of people who have a balance that they have not converted yet to points. So I'm sure, as you guys know, if you have a balance, and you want to get points on the leaderboard, you're required to send a transaction to our address of a threshold amount of 0.1 iron. So right now, even if all blocks are at full capacity, we actually will not be able to, accommodate all the people that have a balance currently, which is kind of an interesting problem. We do want to end phase 2, and so we're kind of, we're working through how do we balance ending phase 2 and also give the ability for people to actually pay out the balance that they have. And so what we're actually going to be doing is we're going to be working on a feature to allow accelerated deposit. So we'll allow people to make higher deposits for points. This feature is in progress. It is labeled on the roadmap as allow increased testnet deposits for people who are interested. We'll be starting working on that actually next week. We'll try to get it out as fast as possible. So hopefully by the following week, we'll be able to get that deployed. So we want to give people, at least 2-3 weeks to actually finish out their payouts. And so that actually lands us at around November 15th for the phase 2 end. So again, we first want to deploy this feature that will allow people to actually convert all of their coins for points. We'll give people, a couple weeks to actually finish out their payouts, and we'll close out phase 2 on November 15th. So what does that mean going forward? So right now, our next feature that we really want to test for phase 3 is actually multi-asset. So kind of reminder that we want Ironfish to be this privacy layer for all crypto assets. So multi-asset is pretty pivotal to that goal. Phase 3 is going to be all about testing out that feature, as well as all the optimization, things that we've been working on for phase 2 as well. So right now we don't have a concrete start date for phase 3, but we do kind of want to conclude phase 2 because there are GPU miners and people are kind of having a hard time competing with that. And also that will allow the team to actually focus on making sure that phase 3 is a good experience. So again, if anyone has any questions, please feel free to ask. We'll be very transparent about when we'll deploy this new feature and what the requirements are for converting your existing coins for points. So we'll try to get that as soon as possible. So stay tuned for that. So up next, we're actually going to be talking about some engineering updates. There's a ton of things that went in the last month that we want to kind of highlight. So there's Wallet 2.0 work, which I'm sure a lot of you guys are familiar with that. There's a lot of effort ongoing with our snapshots and making that experience better. There's RPC auth, multi-asset, and a couple of upcoming tasks. So we'll have different people kind of talk about that. So first up is going to be Hugh, who will actually give you updates on the two things I mentioned, which is Wallet 2.0 and snapshots. Hugh?
So last week, we released what we've been calling Wallet 2.0. And Wallet 2.0 is a set of major changes to the way that accounts data is stored. Hopefully in the last week, you've seen that Wallet 2.0 has massive improvements in performance when fetching balances. It should speed up sending transactions and sending deposits as well. A number of you were extremely helpful in testing out the Wallet 2.0 changes during development. And we're still working on improvements to the wallet. So we're eager to hear any feedback or issues that you run into with sending transactions or looking at balances, anything wallet related. We're really eager to hear feedback and continue making improvements. Another thing that we released last week was an automated process for uploading chain database snapshots. So previously, we'd been uploading snapshots periodically, but we really wanted to ensure that there's a regular snapshot so that people can more easily download and get synced back with the chain. So the snapshot upload now takes place daily, and there's a synced snapshot available every day around 6 or 7 p.m. Pacific time in the US. The snapshots are automated and updated. I'll turn it over to Daniel. PC.
Yeah, thanks, Hugh. I was going to giving a little update on RPC authentication, which is something we've added in the most recent version of Ironfish. So now when you're running commands on your node over TCP, so maybe this is nodes running on like a remote server or something like that, we've added by default authentication for TCP connections. So when you start up your node, it'll automatically generate a new password for your node and store it in, not in the config, but in an internal .json file. And then every TCP request you send needs to include that password. And we've done this just to make running a remote node more secure so that you can open up the TCP port on your remote node and not have to worry about people having complete access to your node. So I'll post some further instructions in the monthly Pulse channel, and then maybe in the general as well, on exactly how to do that. And next, I think I'll hand it over to Matt to talk about engineering updates on multi-asset.
Thanks, Daniel. Hello, everybody. So yeah, I've been working on multi-asset for quite a while. And so for those of you who don't know what multi-asset is, because I'm not sure how much we've actually explained it, is our goal is to allow assets to be bridged from other blockchains, basically. And so we've been calling that project multi-asset. I actually wrote the first line of code for this in like April, so I've been working on this for several months as well as Rohan. We have just this past week sort of wrapped up our prototype and research phase. And so we're moving into the next phase of like actual development of getting the functionality into the Ironfish node. So if you look at the roadmap, you'll actually see some of the project breakdown of what we're going to be working on next. We have some refactors coming in to make the code a little bit easier to work with. And then from there, we should start seeing it'll be a while before it's like usable from the CLI, but some of the code will be going in actually, probably in the coming weeks. So that's exciting stuff. Keep your eyes peeled for that. And I guess I'll pass it to Lawrence, who's going to talk about a few more engineering things.
Great, thanks, Matt. I just wanted to call out a few updates that are coming and should address some of the issues that we've seen from people in the community who've been really helpful and help us, have been testnet participants and have been super communicative about all the things that are happening on the Ironfish network, and want to make sure that we're equally as communicative about things that we're going to do to help address certain things. The first thing is add block time. So add block time it's part of the infrastructure of the actual network. It's like actually when you're syncing or when your node is trying to stay synced, adding blocks to the blockchain is a process that takes a certain amount of time. It takes a little extra time for us because we use zero knowledge proofs and some of the basic features of Ironfish. So we are always looking to make that faster, more efficient. In the general industry, it's gotten much better over the last few years, and I expect it to get better. Part of which is the work we're doing here at Ironfish and elsewhere. So we are working on that immediately to address certain issues that we've heard from the community around speed or difficulty staying synced, or we think it could address some of the other issues around things like rescan and some of the other problems we've seen that Elena's going to talk about in a minute with a known issues doc. So it's a really important fundamental feature that doesn't sound very exciting, but I wanted to call it out because it does acknowledge that there's some underlying performance issues that we really want to work through, and obviously are very important if we're going to make this usable and move to mainnet. So next thing I want to talk about, this is actually a bit of a breaking change for miners who have done custom mining work. So I wanted to call it out ahead of time. It's not happening yet, but it is in development. We're going to be moving from building blocks. So we have a 300 transaction block limit, and we're going to be moving from a transaction-based block limit to a size-based block limit. That's actually similar to most other chains. What we're doing was sort of a stopgap interim solution that was not meant to be long-term. So we're going to be building out a size-based block and have that be moved into our consensus model. So that's something that you will see coming down the pipe. It's something that is important for a number of different reasons in terms of being more efficient with the way we process fees, and what can happen right now is transactions can essentially vary wildly in size based off of what's happening within them, and we want to make sure that miners can respond properly to that and have the proper incentive structure. So that's a big one that's coming. And then finally, Elena mentioned, but we want to wrap up phase 2. And we know that one of the prerequisites to wrapping up phase 2 is make sure that everybody can spend all of the iron that they have in their accounts for phase 2 before we reset. And we're going to build a essentially like a larger deposit command. So instead of depositing by 0.1 iron increments, we'll have larger deposits possible, and you'll get the same amount of points. You'll get a proportionally correct amount of points. So it will penalize. Right now, you can deposit larger amounts to the bank. It gives you the same amount of testnet points. So we want to change that. And then with that, I will move over to Elena.
Awesome. So I think this concludes our updates. I'm just scanning for questions in both the general channel as well as the monthly pulse. I'm trying to kind of answer them as they're coming. We'll keep the monthly pulse open for a bit, and obviously the general channel as well. Please ask us questions if anything is unclear. Our goal here is to make it fair for the people that have been working really hard to support the project. I do want to point out that right now, if you look at our stats page, we have over 6,000 nodes supporting Ironfish today as a testnet. That's more than the majority of layer ones that are actually mainnet launched. And that's amazing. Like that comes from this amazing community that's supporting the network, that's helping us debug. And there are people who are professional miners, who are hobbyists, who are, regular people doing this in the weekend. It's really kind of inspiring to see all the people that are they're contributing to the project. And so really want to make it fair to anyone and everyone who has helped Ironfish along the way. So whenever we make decisions like, working on a feature such as helping people to deposit the coins that they have currently on balance, that comes from a place of making sure that that everyone feels rewarded for the work that they've been doing. So if anyone has suggestions or things they want to see, especially for phase 3 going forward, we always highly encourage any feedback. We're building Ironfish for you. It'd be kind of silly to build a project that users cannot use. So your feedback is very much extremely important to us. I just want to stress again that we highly appreciate all the effort that's been happening, and really, really welcome your feedback. Sorry, I guess the Pulse chat is closed. Oh, I'm sorry. Wait, was the Pulse chat closed this entire time? Oh no. Redfish is saying that the monthly Pulse chat is closed. Can someone confirm that? Because I've been typing in it this entire time.
I've just enabled it for everyone. Yeah.
Sorry?
I've just enabled the option for people to write into the monthly Pulse channel as well.
Oh, I see. Okay, but the question came from Redfish. Question, any idea for the increase in transactions? Are they from new joiners due to Tornado / more awareness of needing privacy in crypto? So we're not sure why we have such a huge increase in transactions. One hypothesis that we have is that since we have been talking about ending phase 2, especially bigger miners that have had a really big balance are producing more and more transactions and trying to convert those into points. So I think that's kind of what we're seeing. But yes, if you look at the charts on our block explorer, we have had consistently over 300,000 transactions daily for quite some time now, which is kind of impressive because their theoretical limit is actually 288K, which means that blocks are actually coming in faster to produce more transactions than our hypothetical max for a day. So which is pretty interesting. But yeah, I'm not entirely sure why we're seeing such an increase other than what I just mentioned. The cool thing about that though is every single Ironfish transaction is a zero knowledge proof transaction. So we're producing literally more zero knowledge proof transactions than like any other chain combined, which is kind of a surreal stat. Obviously this isn't organic, it's incentivized, so I do want to preface it with that. But, at this rate, we're doing roughly a third to a fourth of daily Ethereum transactions per day, just in our testnet. And again, obviously this isn't like organic activity, but the goal of phase 2 was to stress test the system and kind of see how far can we can push Ironfish. And so it's been really cool to see that even despite our issues and, syncing problems and whatnot, to a large extent, it is actually working and is helping us, really uncover those optimization issues that the team is really hard at work to get right. I can see Redfish typing, so I'm going to wait a little bit to see if there's a question. Okay, awesome. Cool. Well, I think with that, we can wrap it up. Again, thank you so much for supporting Ironfish. It's been extremely rewarding and inspiring to have such a really strong community. Those people who are doing open source contributions, that's amazing. Thank you so much. Obviously, anyone who's running a node, thank you so much. And with that, happy Friday, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. And again, if there's any questions, concerns, or advice for phase 3, please let me know. All right. Goodbye, everyone.